Another interesting one here. Cade Stover. I'm so Cade Stover out of Ohio State there. There we go. So we've talked about Cade before because actually we mocked him in one of our mock drafts we did on the show there. 6'4", 247 pounds, 23 years old. So good size. Also played linebacker and edge while he was there in Ohio State, particularly early on years there. Wasn't the best at it, but started off his career that way. Obviously, he was good in high school at it. Would have made it to Ohio State otherwise. But yeah, they saw he had some good hands. So they converted him over to a tight end and went pretty well. He's also a former basketball player at Ohio State as well. So two sport kind of guy. Last year, 12 games, 41 receptions, 576 yards, 5 touchdowns, a 75.6 PFF grade.
Looks like that linebacker edge position helped out with some of the PFF grade.
Some of that apparently. Last year in 22, 13 games, 36 receptions, 406 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Now, one issue we come across right now with him is he actually hurt himself at the combine. So you really need to look at the medical and see what's going on there. He had a back injury. Actually, I was actually at the combine. I'm sorry. He hurt himself at the Peach Bowl, and that kept him out of the combine. So we'll have to see if we get any kind of individual pro day for him or something like that, so the teams have a chance to take a look at him. He's explosive. He's fast. He's a good blocker. But he's also raw. He needs to improve his route tree. And I don't think his ceiling is ever going to be elite. But I think it's going to be good to above average. I think he'll be a good starting tight end of this league here. But you're going to have to kind of take a little bit of the bad with the good as far as, the fact that he's very raw. But anytime you can get the kind of numbers we just showed you there with somebody who's also good to block. I mean, his numbers aren't that far off necessarily from Ben. We just talked about in Kansas State before him. So talking 40 more yards their second to last season, 100-yard difference the senior year here, the last year. But overall, not that huge of a difference for a guy who's a whole lot better of a blocker.
Yeah, and you put the raw in the cons. And to me, like that rawness, maybe should be waived above con. Maybe not so much in pro, but you have to talk about you have to talk about the rawness. Like, when you talk about a guy that literally came
so raw,
dirty and
raw tight end.
But when you come in that line, so when you come to college, when you come to college and you're on the offensive line, that's how you got drafted. That's how you got to Ohio State. Like, is being a good, linebacker edge position, but you get converted to a tight end. That just tells me you're a really good blocker, and you also have hands. So, like, being raw in that position, it's not necessarily a bad thing because he's still learning to be like a runner instead of sitting there and waiting for a block and a tackle. So, like, there's a lot of room for growth. There's a high ceiling here. So that rawness, going back to it, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
And he's a guy that I think will start from day one. I really do, depending on who picks him up. I mean, if somebody who picks him up has an established tight end and wants him as a really high-quality backup, I get that option too. But if you need a good starting tight end, we get the big three here, and they're really the guys that you want. I mean, the number 2 and number 3 at that point, you probably want to have a decent veteran backup just for some guidance and for just in case they're not as good as we think they are. But I mean, this is kind of the cream of the crop, kind of this position here now we're getting into. So he's also going to be probably a 3rd round pick. I would say probably early to mid 3rd round at that point there. I think someone will take him there. But it all depends really on where the number 2 guy we're about to talk about in a minute goes, because I think once he goes, you're going to start people saying, okay, well, there's 3 really good tight ends here. We got to make sure we get one of them. Let's take this guy now.
This number 2 drops. Number 3 is going pretty fast behind him.
Yeah, because like I said,
Yeah,
Ben Sinnott is the number 4 there. He needs some work there at that point there. Especially at blocking. So do you really want to put yourself in to count on a guy who's not the best at blocking to be your starting tight end, depending on what kind of offense you have, obviously. But for a lot of offenses, that won't work. It won't.
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.